Good evening. Welcome to FND's It's a Great Idea. Tonight we will be discussing the right of students with disabilities to an individualized education plan, or IEP. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Just by you being here with me this evening, you're already making a significant difference in the life of your child, because it's a great idea to be here, and knowledge is power. And so I would like to welcome you. My name is Kibwana Wright. I am here under dual hats this evening. The first, as a professional working in the field with families with disabilities and children of high-risk situations for over 20 years, and also as a parent of children with disabilities. FND is a parent-driven organization founded by parents. And so it would be very significant that I decided to get my child evaluated after having a conversation with another parent. She was telling me about how she was faced with different challenges, and her son was faced with different challenges at school academically, and how they had gotten him evaluated. And some of the behaviors that he was displaying and issues that he was having with his teachers. And it sounded a lot like my child and what I was going through. And it was because of that conversation that I decided to go and get my child evaluated. And she was evaluated and was put on an IEP. And so I am thankful for that conversation and for the courage of that parent to be able to discuss freely about what her child was facing and what she was facing by being an advocate for her child. And it was through these conversations and relationships that I learned how to advocate for my child. And not just that, I learned how to teach my child to advocate for themselves. So this is a great series that you are about to review. So let's get started. We are a 50c3 nonprofit organization helping families across the state of Florida. We are funded in part by the Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Health. We provide information, resources, and support to families and educators all across Florida. The Family Network on Disabilities is a national network for individuals of all ages who may be at risk, have disabilities, or have special needs in their families. We also serve professionals and concerned citizens. Founded in 1985 by a group of parents of children with disabilities, we came together looking for mutual support and an opportunity to share information. FND is a grassroots organization for persons with disabilities and their families, and is family-centered and family-driven. And what makes FND very unique is that the majority of our board members, our management staff, and program staff are parents, family members, or persons with disabilities. A very important clarification we want to make before we begin is that we are not doctors or lawyers, and no information discussed here during these workshops can be considered legal or medical advice. We do not interpret the law, and we do not provide medical advice of any type. However, we are excited to be able to share with you information, resources, and supports for you and your family. We use research-based information in order to create our trainings, and we work in collaboration with state and federally funded organizations in order to create and provide resources for your families. The purpose of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act have their roots in the past, when children with disabilities were often excluded from schools. This history can be clearly seen in the findings that Congress states at the very beginning of the law, as most recently amended in 2004. Public Law 108 through 446 states that persons with disabilities with disability is a natural part of the human experience, and in no way diminishes the rights of individuals to participate or contribute to society. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy, ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. Before the date of the enactment of Education for All Handicapped Children's Act of 1975, the educational needs of millions of children with disabilities were not being fully met, because children did not receive appropriate educational services. The children were excluded entirely from the public school system and being educated with their peers. Undiagnosed disabilities prevented children from having a successful educational experience, or the lack of adequate resources within the public school system forced families to find services outside of the public school system. Those findings are the foundation of the development of the 6 major principles of IDEA, known as the 6 pillars of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. These 6 pillars are free, appropriate public education, appropriate evaluation, individualized education plan, least restrictive environment, parent participation, and procedural safeguards. Today, we are going to expand on the right of students with disabilities to an individualized education plan, usually known as IEP. Every child with a disability who is eligible for ESE will have an IEP. An IEP is a written plan that tells you, your child, the teachers, and other school staff which ESE services the school will provide for your child. Your child cannot receive ESE services until the first IEP is developed and you give permission for the services and placement. IEPs are developed during IEP team meetings. You will get a written notice from the school before each IEP meeting. The notice will tell you the day, time, and place suggested for the meeting, who will be there, and why the meeting is being held. The school staff wants your help in writing this IEP. So they will try to find a day, time, and place that is good for you. Some parents choose to participate in the meetings by telephone or via Skype or Zoom. If you choose not to participate in the meeting, the school may hold the IEP team meeting without you. Even if you do not participate, you will still receive a copy of the child's IEP. Here are some things to keep in mind about the IEP. The IEP is a plan for your child only. There is only one IEP at a time for your child. The IEP describes the services your child will receive from the beginning date and ending date of the IEP, which will be for 1 year or less. A new IEP must be written for your child at least once every year. And the people and your school invite the people you and your school invite to the IEP team meeting should have knowledge or expertise about your child or the technology your child uses. If the school is going to invite someone from any agency other than the school district, you must give your written permission. And if you're going to invite someone, it would be helpful if you would let the school know who you are inviting. When you sign the IEP, it does not mean that you agree with it. Your signature on the IEP form means that you attended the meeting. It does not mean that you give your permission for services to begin. You will be asked to sign a different form to give your permission for services to begin for your child. If you do not agree with the IEP, you can write "not in agreement" on the IEP beside your name. Now let's take a look at the IEP document. The IEP has 9 components, and it may include some additional information depending on the individual needs of the student. Present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. The present level statement describes what your child is able to do, what they struggle with in academic subjects, and functional skills. It may also include information about how your child behaves or communicates with others. It may identify at what grade level your child is performing. The IEP team needs to know what your child knows and can do when it develops your child's IEP. The IEP team also needs to know how your child's disability affects their progress. This information helps determine what the child needs to learn, your child's annual goals, and what services that they may need. Here are some examples of present level statements. Based on John's results on the district reading test, John understands what he reads at a 3rd grade level. Or based on the teacher and parents' observations, Mary hits people when she is angry, upset, and needs help. Or based on parents' observation, Eric writes slowly, but he enjoys using the computer and does more of his homework when allowed to use the computer. Measurable annual goals state what your child needs to learn in order to progress in the general curriculum and to meet other needs related to their disability. These goals are based on the present level statement. An IEP may contain one or more annual goals. They describe what your child should be able to learn within a year. Annual goals must be measurable. This means that goals should be written so that at the end of the year, the IEP team can tell if your child has learned what was expected. Goals should be reasonable. The goal should not plan too much or too little for your child. Here's an example of some annual goals. By the end of the year, John will independently read a fourth grade textbook and answer comprehension questions with 80% accuracy. By the end of the year, Mary will use words instead of hitting when she is angry, upset, or needs help 80% of the time. By the end of the year, through participating in keyboarding classes, Eric will be able to use a laptop to complete and turn in 95% of his homework assignments on time. For older students, the IEP will include goals related to the student's transition to life after high school. Benchmarks or short-term objectives, your child's IEP may contain benchmarks or short-term objectives. Benchmarks and short-term objectives are only required for students who take the Florida alternate assessment, or FAA. For other students, they are optional. The IEP team makes the decision about including benchmarks and short-term objectives. Benchmarks are major milestones between the present levels of performance and annual goals. Short-term objectives are similar, but usually cover smaller steps. However,